You just got engaged. And you are or you will spend months planning your wedding. The venue, the flowers, the seating chart, the playlist. But most newlyweds spend almost no time planning for what might happen if one of you gets sick, or worst case scenario, one of you passes away. You're not thinking about insurance. You're not thinking about taxes. And I'm here to tell you, pretty adorable and cute if you start thinking about those things. So I'm going to walk you through the 10 most important estate planning conversations that every newly married couple should have. And honestly, let's say every newly engaged couple should have. Who is going to make medical decisions? Here in California, it's not automatically your spouse. We don't have a statute for that. We do have a statute that says that your attending physician can decide if you're incapacitated. This is not an ideal situation for the doctor. This is not something they want to do. They do not want to choose between your spouse and your mother or your spouse and your adult children. Can't leave your family guessing. And maybe as importantly as saying, my spouse is in charge, your advanced healthcare directive should also say, my lovely spouse, please take the time to speak with my mother about funeral arrangements. My dear spouse, please ensure that my adult children make it to my bedside before you do what I'm asking and pull the plug. An advanced healthcare directive is really the heart of your estate plan, because if you lose capacity and somebody has to make these difficult decisions, they're going to need more than instruction. They're going to need the emotional support that you're going to provide in this document. Is your spouse actually protected? Are they going to automatically inherit from you? The myth is, everything is going to go to my spouse when I die, but the reality is much more complicated. If you have accounts where you haven't named them as a beneficiary, maybe you named someone else, or you left it blank, they're not going to get any, or maybe they'll only get some of that account. If they're not entitled to real estate with you in a way that they automatically receive your portion, they may not receive any of your real estate. What if you own a business? What if you have separate property? A surviving spouse does not automatically inherit separate property. They inherit just a piece of that separate property. You don't want to leave a surviving spouse in a situation where the house that they're living in, which is your separate property, is now owned partially by them and partially by your parents or your adult children. Marriage is not the same thing as inheritance planning. You have to look at your beneficiary designations. I routinely meet with newlyweds who still have mom or a sibling or even an ex as the beneficiary on their retirement accounts. You need to review all of your accounts and your life insurance policies really carefully, and don't forget about those employee benefits. Don't forget about your employee benefit life insurance. This is maybe one of the most important things that you can do. You don't want to inadvertently disinherit your new spouse or your new fiance. Should you add your spouse to title of your home here in California? Oh, that is a really common question. And my answer is always, it depends. Is there a prenup? Do you understand what the implication would be on divorce? Do you want to give your spouse 50-50? Do you want to give your spouse a portion? Is there a mortgage? Who's responsible for paying for that mortgage? Is this a home that you owned before you married your current spouse? Is this the home that your children think of as their home? It can be a lot more complicated than what is tax savvy. It can be a lot more complicated than making sure that a spouse has the right to live in that house. A deed is a complicated document, and in order to do this, you need to talk to both an estate planning lawyer and a family law attorney to get the full picture of all of the possibilities and all of the related consequences. So insurance really is a form of estate planning. I don't sell insurance, but I encourage all of my clients, and in fact, I kind of require my clients to do a full insurance audit. If one spouse died today, does the other have enough money to stay in the house? Is there money to pay off the mortgage? Is there money to pay the ever-rising insurance costs? And maybe there are HOA costs also. We have to think about life insurance. We have to think about disability insurance. If all of a sudden one of you can't work, is a paycheck still going to arrive to cover all of the marital costs? And have you looked at auto, homeowners, umbrella insurance? Often with newlyweds, one of you did insurance with a broker, one of you did insurance online, and none of it meets in the middle. There are wide gaps in your insurance. I don't want you to be in a situation where you have a gap in insurance and your dog bites someone, and now you're on the hook for $100,000 because you hadn't done your insurance review. So who handles the money if one of you loses capacity? It's not automatically the other spouse. It's not actually automatically anyone. Here in California, the moment you turn 18, you are an independent person and nobody can get into your bank accounts, negotiate with your landlord, talk to your employer because there are privacy laws in the way. You really need to put another adult in charge and give them the authority to step into your shoes to act as you with third parties, including the ability to sign your name to a tax return. Being incapacitated does not get you a pass with the IRS if you are late on your taxes. You need to talk about bank accounts, real estate, investments, taxes, employers. A power of attorney is a really powerful document. It's important to work with an attorney to determine how much authority you want to give and who you want to give it to, because your spouse does not automatically have that authority. Okay, newlyweds, have you talked about children? Not just are you going to have them? But let's talk about blended families. We have to think about guardians. We have to think about values, caregivers, and we really have to think about financial resources. When it comes to estate planning, where we have blended families, we have to think about, do we need one marital trust? Do we need separate shared trusts? Do we need to keep a co-parent's eyes out of the marital trust you have for your new spouse? It can be a little bit complicated. Sometimes the biggest question isn't who gets the money. It's who's going to raise your kids. Let's talk about prenups and separate property. Negotiating a prenup can be exhausting. Each of you has to have a lawyer. It takes time. There are a lot of disclosures. And while you're doing this, you're also planning your wedding. Sometimes you're buying a house. There is a lot going on. You're planning a vacation, your honeymoon. And it's a really common misconception because sometimes in your prenup, there will be language regarding death. Your prenup might say, my spouse doesn't get any of my separate property when I die. Or your prenup might say, I waive the right to receive my spouse's community property when they die. Just because there are some provisions related to death in your prenup does not mean that that prenup is what we call a testamentary document. That doesn't mean that that prenup takes the place of a beautifully crafted estate plan. An estate plan is designed for the end of a happy marriage, unlike a prenup, which is designed for a divorce. The strongest plan includes coordination between the two documents. Your estate planning attorney and your family law attorneys should be in touch, and your estate planning attorney should get to take a look at your prenup. If you've already done this, it's not too late. You have a prenup, you haven't done estate planning yet, that's fine. And if you have disinherited each other in the prenup, your estate plan can clean that up and make sure that if you died while still happily married to your spouse, you're not unintentionally disinheriting them by saying they don't get to inherit your separate property, and we can also work around that waiver of the right to inherit community property law. Are your advisors talking to each other? One of you had a financial advisor and a great CPA, and the other one had a great business lawyer and a fantastic insurance broker. But you haven't meshed all of this together yet. Your team should include a CPA, a financial advisor, great insurance professionals, both for your stuff and for yourselves, for your bodies, and an estate planning attorney. The best outcomes happen when all of your advisors are aware of each other, have the ability to ask each other questions, and can solve problems together for you. Have you talked about your values? Have you talked about aging parents, money, children, caregiving, charities? Some of the most connected conversations that couples have happen during estate planning. I've worked with couples who have been married for 40, 50 years, and they hadn't really had these conversations. I love it when one of them turns to the other and says, ooh, now I really feel married to you. It's just so charming. Estate planning is a collaborative experience. It's something that brings you together. It forces you to look at your shared values and really make determinations based on those values as to how you're going to care for each other, but also for the other important people in your lives. The documents really matter, but the devil's in the details, and the conversations that lead to beautifully crafted bespoke documents, that's where the sweet stuff is. So marriage changes just about every aspect of your life, and it should absolutely be a trigger for estate planning. Estate planning isn't just about planning for death. It's about making sure that the people you love have the authority they need as soon as they need it, if that time comes. If you're newly married in California, or you're a professional who works with engaged couples or newlyweds, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this helpful, please click like, subscribe, and please share it with somebody who's engaged or is newly married.